Jim Lucas, Checotah Public Library. Today I wanted to be sure that I thank all of the people who have sponsored this program and let them know that we really appreciate the money that they have contributed and their time and efforts contributed to this so that we can bring these programs to you. We did get a wellness grant so that we can have literacy programs and the story walk out at the park, and we can have some of these little cooking programs promoting health for the whole family, children and adults alike. Today I'm going to be doing a mason jar demonstration for breakfast, and you want to get your children involved and maybe get them involved in eating healthy things. The first thing I wanted to do, though, is talk about the history of the mason jar, which I found interesting. My oldest nephew, whenever I told him that I was going to be doing these mason jar cooking, he suggested that maybe I do a history of the mason jar, and I have learned quite a bit. So this is going to be an extremely brief and an extremely limited history of the mason jar and the jars that followed. We had a man, or there was a man back in the 1850s. He was 26 years old, and his name was John Mason. And he decided that he needed to make a lid and a jar that would preserve food better than what had been being preserved. So he actually created the lid first, and then he created the jar, and then spent some time trying to make the lid and the jar match each other because he wanted a screw-on lid. So Mr. Mason came up with these ideas for these mason jars, and he patented it, but the patent only lasted like 20 years. The patent lasts 20 years, I should say. And at the end of the 20 years, he failed to trademark it in time, and so other companies came on and figured out that they could copy what he had done. And some of the companies wanted to stay true to him, and so when you go to the store and you find like Ball Mason Jar or Kerr Mason Jar or Atlas Mason Jar, they wanted to stay true to what he had designed. And of course they made some improvements. Now this one is a mason jar, and it was patented, it says here, in 1858. So this is one of the first mason jars made. Has a lid with it that screws on, and the number on the bottom is an 18, so that means it was mold number 18 that was made. And it's a vintage blue. And this is probably worth, I looked it up this morning, this is probably worth about $25. Now it's because they were mass marketed. There are some mason jars that are worth in the thousands, but there were only like maybe 50 to 100 made, and they were made for special purposes. He also made some little crock pot type things, and it says Mason Pottery on the bottom, and this has an Atlas lid on the top, and the Atlas lid actually has the original rubber seal on it, and I'm kind of afraid to open it, but this is one that was handed down to my sister, and we know it entered the family in 1903 on my mother's side of the family, and in 1963 my grandmother gave this to my sister, and it had 24 pecans in it. Guess what? My sister throws nothing away, and it still has the 24 pecans in it that my sister inherited, which I find hysterical. I'm always teasing her that she never throws anything away. This is a ball jar. I know you can't hardly see that, but it's a ball jar, and it was patented on July the 14th in 1908. There were 5 brothers. Okay, there were 5 brothers who went in together, and their last name was Ball, and they decided they wanted to stay true to the mason jars, so whenever they started producing jars, they would put like Ball Mason. And if you go online, you can tell that about every 20 to 25 years, the signature changes. So you can actually date your jars by the type of signature. So I found that interesting. This one does have some damage to it, and the lid does not have the original seal anymore, and it doesn't have the wire the wire device that would keep it on. So it's since it's damaged, it's probably not worth as much. This one is an Atlas jar, and I don't know if you can see this or not. You can tell an original Atlas, Hazel Atlas jar, because it has this fancy little H with an A on the inside of the H. And so this jar that I'm showing you does have that up here on the seal. And I don't know if you can see it real well or not, but it has that H and A, so that's an original Hazel Atlas. Now they're called Atlas jars, but the original company was Hazel Atlas. Okay, and then this one is another Ball. It's a Ball Ideal jar, and this was mold number, had a mold number 6 on the bottom. Okay, so this one does have the little wire device that keeps the lid on. Okay, and then this one is an Atlas Easy. It does not have that seal or that brand on it, so I'm thinking this one may have come like after the 1960s because it doesn't have the original brand on it. And so whenever companies started buying other jar companies out, then sometimes they would take those original trademarks off. I will tell you that I also learned that the the Kerr Jar Company, they were the first ones to manufacture a wide mouth. And I think I have a Kerr right here. Just step over here. This is a Kerr jar that I got at Walmart a couple of years ago, and they were the first ones to make the wide mouth jars to make it easier to put things in. And they were also the first ones to make the two-part lids. And this was back in the 1900s, like 1906. This part you would throw away after you break the seal and you've emptied your jar. You throw this away because you can't reuse it. But the rim, you can use again. Okay, so that's a little history of all of the jars. I do have that I bought a few years ago at Walmart, this ball jar. It's wide mouth, and I bought it because it was a pretty blue. That's the whole reason I bought it. I liked the color, so it's called Vintage Blue. And then I was going down the aisle, and I found these fancy little lids, and I thought, well, it's not blue, but I like the green lid that goes on top of it. And so I bought these so that I could use these to start making mason jar meals. Okay, and that's what I want to do today is I want to make a little mason jar meal for you. There is no real recipe for this. I did find a recipe in, I think it was one of the cookbooks here at the library, and I think it was like Eat This, Don't Eat That, or something, one of those cookbooks. And I thought, that is so easy. I don't cook. And I will tell you, when I told my sister that I was going to start cooking for the library, we were out for a walk, and she almost fell over a rock laughing so hard, and she said, you don't cook. And I said, I know, this is a problem. But here I am. Some of you may have seen some pictures that I posted back in March when we were first sent home and told that we needed to work from home, and I had a couple of nieces that I was helping babysit. And so I had them sit down, and they did this. I gave them a couple of mason jars, and I said, we're going to make this little breakfast, and this is what we did. If I were making this for myself, I'd use a whole 1/4 of a cup of oatmeal, and you put your oatmeal at the bottom. Since this is for a child, you might put just a little bit less than a 1/4 of a cup, maybe an 1/8 of a cup. It depends on how big your child is and how much they eat. So you put a little bit of oatmeal in the bottom of the jar. Then you put some chopped walnuts, and again, depending on the size of the child and how much they eat, just put some walnuts in. That's real easy. Then you just take some yogurt. Any kind of yogurt that has like the live active cultures will work. And you just, and the reason you want to do that is because the live active cultures keeps your body healthy and keeps your stomach and digestive system healthy. And you just put in what you think your children will eat, and they can eat kind of like what's left over in here if they want to. I'm going to go ahead and add a little more. Okay. Then, here, you just want a smidgen of cinnamon. You don't want very much, just a tiny bit. So I usually just shake a little bit in there. Then you want some blueberries. I like frozen blueberries. Those are my favorites, so that's why we got them. And you put them on top, and you can put the lid on just like that and leave it overnight in the refrigerator. And if you're in a hurry the next morning, you know how we're all rushed in the morning. We don't seem to have enough time to do anything. You get up in the morning and you've got this ready to go. And I know that I have some nieces and nephews that they eat their breakfast on the way to school of a morning. I don't know if you've ever done that or not, but they eat on the way to school of a morning. And so this would be something healthy that they could eat on their way. Now some people like to do this. They take their oatmeal, put it in here, their walnuts, their yogurt, and you can use any flavor yogurt. I like the vanilla. That's what I requested when I sent my boss to the store the other day. And I said, I just want some vanilla because it goes with any flavor. And I love blueberries. I love strawberries mixed with it. Put just a little bit more. You don't want a lot of cinnamon because you don't want the cinnamon to overtake all the flavors. Okay, put some of this. And then we can just mix this up if you want to. And this jar is a little bit hard. I like a teaspoon, by the way, to mix things up. And you can just spend a little bit of time mixing this up. And once you get it all mixed up, put a lid on it and leave it overnight. Okay, and some people don't like oatmeal, so you could use like some nutty, some nutty granola or grape nuts or something like that and put in it and mix that up and leave it sit overnight. Some people cannot handle dairy. So you leave the yogurt out, just mix everything up overnight, and then the next morning you get up and put a little bit of milk in it and let it stand for a few minutes, and then you can eat that. So you've got all kinds of varieties that you can use. Did anybody in the audience have a question? Okay, that's basically concludes my mason jar breakfast. It's real simple. It doesn't take but a couple of minutes. Throw it in the refrigerator overnight, and you've got it ready to go the next morning, whether you're going to a ball game. I have some neighbors that have children who play softball all summer long, and I know sometimes they get up at 5 in the morning to leave out for some tournament. And I have a lady here in the audience that she knows what that's all about. So they can just mix up their little breakfast and take it with them as they go. Okay. And if that's no questions, then that concludes our Cooking with Pat, the second in the series of Cooking with Pat. Thank you very much.